This is 2OF Entertainment.
And here we are. Good day to you.
Another edition. Another edition of Canadian Art Today, and as always, we have another great artist today. Yeah, how are you doing?
Yeah, I'm okay, and we're just sort of hoping that spring will be with us soon, but we're not quite sure.
Yeah, well, we had another dusting again.
I told you, Paul, I have actually used the snow shovel this year, which is the first time in 7 years that I've used it. So
I've used mine a few times myself this spring.
Yeah.
Anyway, we're gonna talk with Diane LaRouch Ellard, who's a landscape painter. I mean, we've had them before, and everybody has like their own way of doing things, and I love Diane's work and her response to the landscape. It feels like she just literally is immersed in the landscape. She walks it a little bit and takes photos and the reference material to build what she does. She works on encaustic as well as different painting styles and different things that she's doing. She's got a young, energetic career ahead, like she's planning things ahead, and we're going to talk about maybe some of those kind of things that artists, how to plan some stuff ahead, move your career ahead, move how do you get from place A to B? Do you plan residencies and workshops and things? And so her work is very inspiring, and I think we need to sit back and just relax, get a coffee, and listen to her talk about her processes and see some of the beautiful images that we're going to show them about how she responds to the landscape. And let's bring Diane in.
Okay, let's bring her in. So say hello to Diana.
Good morning.
Hi.
Good morning. Yeah, well, David's going to disappear like a butterfly, he said, and then we'll continue.
Yeah, well, I'll let you guys get on, have a great show, and speak to you at the end. Have a good show. Bye-bye.
Thanks, David.
Thanks.
Yeah, good morning. Yeah.
Good morning.
Yeah, well, we had a little dusting of snow again today, and the weather thing, right? And we'll, as artists, I guess we all kind of respond to weather situations. I mean, whether you're a plein air painter or, you look out the window and are, immersed in what's happening the day of the weather, whatever the weather. Do I go out or do I stay in, or am I a studio? Are you a studio person mostly?
I'm mostly a studio person. I like it outdoors, but I like to consider myself indoorsy.
Yeah.
I go for walks, and I what used to really fuel my desire to do landscape was the drive between. I lived in Bigger, Saskatchewan for better than 30 years. And of course, you're driving back and forth because Saskatoon is where I grew up. So you have to come in for appointments or to see your family or whatever. But that drive back and forth in all kinds of weather, except when it was extreme, it really does kind of, you're not aware of taking those mental notes, but absolutely, immersed in that way. And then I'm a studio person for sure, because I really like to play around with what I have and not necessarily just respond to what's there, which feels more like what you would do as a sketch or plein air. And I've done that as well. But then when I bring it back, whether it's a photograph or sketch, whatever, it undergoes quite a transformation in the studio. Maybe several transformations, maybe several layers, maybe. Right? Yeah. So definitely a studio artist for sure. And I mean, when I can work, I've had to have like so many artists have I don't want to call it a real job, a paying job, right? That you get a paycheck from every 2 weeks for my whole art career. And so working in the evenings and weekends was something I became so familiar with. And really then you have to be able to work in the studio, right? So.
Well, I think being an artist, you really have to be aware of your time. Um, you can have so many coffees a day, but sometimes is there a traditional coffee break? Probably not. It's just like unless you build that into your routine, but usually you have one while you're looking at your work and while you're going through your papers and your sketches, or you're sketching while you have a coffee on the side, or it's nice to take a bit of a break from stuff. And so the break would be that walk in the woods or the walk in the grasses. But so that trip you used to do, between your job and where you lived on that, it got you out every day. You see the weather changing around you every day. I mean, that's a nasty piece of highway sometimes. But do you think that, um, more so than just looking from a photo, does that immerse itself under that layer in your paint somehow? Do you feel that
Uh,
you're trying to
I
feel to
agree.
get that feel? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I never
Yeah.
did the drive daily because I lived and worked in Bigger, but I did it often enough. But and I didn't start out as a landscape artist. I had no desire. I found it extremely intimidating. I loved landscape art, but it wasn't what I did. I did when I first started after getting my degree. I was working with like Renaissance imagery, lots of figurative stuff, and so when I moved into the landscape, it was so intimidating. But when I tried my hand at it, by then I had been doing that drive and walking around and driving around and looking at stuff around Bigger. I started doing landscape. And then what really infused that, so I didn't, I mean, yes, I work from an image, and I always like to have an image in front of me, whether I'm actually working from it or not, but it just kind of triggers things. But I started going out to a fellow artist's farm. So Cindy Hoppy, she's a fiber artist. You probably know of her, Paul. Her work is amazing, but we go for walks and we both take at that time, we both had digital cameras. Now it's all with the phone. We take pictures, and it's funny what different things we would on that same walk, we'd focus on different things, right? And she has a certain way that she needed her photographs for reference, and I did as well. So it was really interesting, but it was that actually immersing myself physically in the landscape and walking around, and because I don't know the countryside, I don't know the farmers, I don't know, you get a little bit nervous doing it on your own. So going with a friend was fantastic and really started that ticking over of understanding the landscape here, not here, like not with my eyes, here and in my head. And like you said, you feel it, right? Whether I work relatively non-objectively, it looks like some of my work looks like it's more abstract than landscape, and some of it looks more landscape than abstract, right? But all of it, in my mind, is an abstraction from
Yeah.
landscape, and
I
it's
mean,
taking that sense of the land and the sky, particularly for me, and the horizon, and then expressing that, right?
yeah.
So
I'm
visually,
gonna
I
get I'm gonna
guess.
get I'm gonna get David to start our first image up here, and we'll then we can. There we go. Now this is a cropped image. I mean, it looks lovely seen as a long horizontal. I love the feeling it's. But we will show people this image in its full context at the tail end of our show. So we're just going to start with it and end with it. So this is to hopefully get our all the stuff in a row what we're doing. So I it's I can see the charcoal in this piece. I mean, we don't have to messy up everything and fuzzy up all the edges and build those things, but yours has a kind of a loose way of looking at it, and then you build structure within the forms that you create from. Is that a charcoal that you use initially, or a
No,
pencil?
no, because this is acrylic and mixed media. Charcoal gets a little bit dicey, especially because I don't have a spray hood, a fan that would draw that smell out, the fixative.
Yeah.
I don't like, and now where we live in Saskatoon now, I can't just pop out to the garage, which is where I used to. So quite often, and this is a combination of acrylic marker and what I love to, I still have to fix it. There's a different way, but
Yeah.
anyway, China marker. So you know what China marker is? It'll mark on anything. It'll mark on glass. It'll mark on China. And I use the black and the yellow in this and some white to get dry line, because an acrylic marker to me, yeah, it has a line, but it's like, it looks more like a brush mark to me than an actual, because charcoal, just like the, will kind of breaks, the line breaks up and it becomes particulate and then it's strong again. And so this is the closest I can come to it.
Yeah.
And then also in this one, I've started using quite a bit of In the Sky to get that rough texture. I've started using oh if it's a medium. Words, when you're my age, words just sometimes just disappear. It is molding paste.
Yeah.
I have it right there, molding paste. And so when I discovered that, I found a lot of, I didn't discover it, you know what I mean? When I started using it, just playing around with it, that's something I really want to refine for more texture, because when you see my encaustics, you'll see how much I can play with the texture. Whereas with the surface of an acrylic painting, unless you force it to, it's going to be a flat
Yeah.
kind of plasticky surface, right? So thank you for saying it looks like charcoal, because that, I would prefer to work in charcoal my whole life. I would rather be a drawer, black and white, but
Yeah.
it just doesn't work very well.
Well,
all the time.
we do get enticed by all the colors on our palette, and a lot of people just try to use all the colors, and it's nice sometimes when you only have a minimal palette. There's a lot of strength in a minimal palette. I mean, I love the rhythms of this, and it's such a it's a rolling country a little bit, and you try to, how do you create a line and how do you create depth in a landscape? Not only by just hue and value in the light, and you're pushing people back and forward, and trees give you a little sense of depth, but this one's quite nice. It's got this little linear grass line that kind of takes you back, and it's those observations of trying to find things that are depict that same landscape that's different than yours, than say your friend Cindy, right? Now, you're trying to say, what is my vision of this space, and it's different than the person you're with. I mean, it's really precious that you're able to go out with somebody else who's enthused about the same kind of things you are. I mean, there's a camaraderie there, and you can bounce ideas, and women seem to have more of that than guys. Guys are like, I'll fall out of the tree first before I take a course on anything. Like, it's like women will take a workshop, they will do things. Guys, they go, no, I think I know everything. I don't. And like I said, they'll fall out of the tree to learn that you could use a ladder instead. But no, they need to climb it themselves to understand everything, and which is fine. I understand personally what it's about. But so you usually have a show in in July or something in your group? Area?
Yeah, we haven't actually. It started in I'm gonna say 2020, because it was right at the heart of COVID, and Michaela Hoppy and I lived literally 6 houses apart. So again, another artist, happens to be the daughter-in-law of Cindy Hoppy, fiber artist who lives north of Bigger. So we thought, well, we're just we can't get people in. Nobody's going into galleries. It's all online. So we thought, well, just for Bigger, we'll just hang up artwork on our fences. I put some easels out. It was an extremely windy day. The easels didn't last, but we
we
so that was the first one. And then after that, in 2021, finally, you could get outdoors and meet with people. And so we decided we would expand it, and there was so much interest. We actually, that first year, I think we had 5 venues. So Cindy Hoppy's farm, and then we had a flower farm, and there's an artist, metal sculptor in Arlee. He opened up his, and then we actually had an alpaca farm just to draw people in. So we had these venues, and it was a huge success. I think people were just ready to get out and see. And so we've built on it every year, changed it a little bit, and it's fantastic. So this year it is July 18th, Saturday, rain or shine. And there's lots of information out there. If anyone's interested, it's Prairie Art Road Trip. Honestly, if you Google it, you'll find our website, or you'll find us on Instagram or Facebook.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I think it's really important to find different venues than say the traditionals. The traditional venues are, you got a queue, you got all these other little things, and it's very social to have these pop-ups, we'll call them, and they're artist organized. And I mean, we've heard a number of artists will have a little grouping in a back alley, and they'll have shows and put them on the fence. And just a different feeling completely than in a clean white space in a little squared up building with glass windows. I mean, really nice that you can be in a traditional gallery situation or in a commercial situation, but sometimes looking for an actual response with people that are in your area about your work sometimes is important. Yeah, your daughter can paint better than you. Yeah, you hear all the little lines, but it's fun to talk to people about your work because you do get a different response. And the nice thing about those tours, that person has committed themselves to get in a vehicle and travel about to you. So they're your person for that time that they're there. And it's really nice, and it's a treasured moment that you're able there. It's a small bubble. This doesn't happen for usually many, many years because artists' lives change and things happen, but really enjoy those moments while you have them because they're very, very precious. Anyway, this piece, it's usually I see water around these islands that are like this. The other painters and artists who will paint this rock island of nature that sits in the middle of a beautiful, pristine lake, and I just love seeing where is this one situated? This painting.
So this is way up north, and it was actually a firefighter who also does photography, and I just loved the image. It was much further back, so I just approached him on social media and said, "Would you mind if I just try?" Because I just loved it, and the reason I included it here was this had a lot of breakthroughs for me. So it is actually acrylic on cradle panel. Not sure why I decided to do that, but when you look at the sky, a lot of that was, oops, look at that. So when I worked on the sky, I had dropped some water, and then the acrylic didn't adhere the same, and I started to play with that, and so then I'm working it up. And yeah, I'm sorry, your question was where is it? I can't remember exactly, but it's way up past L'Orange into that area. So I loved the light. I loved the lines I could see in the trees. So the other thing I did with this that I'd never done before was that line, that frenetic kind of for the trees. So everything that you see, some of it is actually painted brushstroke, but in those, I don't know what kind of trees those are, but anyway, obviously some kind of pine or fir or something.
Yeah, they'd be
Anyway,
a pine
so
tree.
that's all. Pardon me?
They're probably a pine, or they could even be a larch tree, but I think
Yeah, I wonder. I don't know what like the way the lighting was, you really couldn't see the color that much. So yeah, it just came off as almost that darkish grainy black, right? So I went in with there's no pen and ink in this one, it's all the acrylic marker, and just let the line happen. And then the white line you see is also a white acrylic marker. And that's this is the first piece that I ever really let that line speak as if it was a drawing on a colored ground. Does that make sense? And allow the line to delineate the form and give it mass, which is something I'm very happy with in this piece still. It's actually one of my favorite pieces.
I like the happenstance of the speckled sky, and you left it, which is, artists need to know this is something that just occurs occasionally, and it's like somebody's looking and saying, here, I'm going to present you with either a solution or a problem. And you have to embrace it one way or the other, and I'm glad you did, because it offers that different speckle, a little thing that's happening that would not normally happen somewhere else. But would you take that idea forward, say, if you like that in the future? Do you try to replicate things that come? I know things happen to you, happenstance, like in your work. We'll talk about a couple other pieces here that were kind of neat. They think, well, how did that happen? But those lovely little accidents, whether it be, I don't know, oil on a surface and you try to put water on it, that kind of thing. But maybe this one got crossed and contaminated with your encaustic work, maybe. But anyway,
doing encaustic then. Actually, encaustic is relatively recent, but yeah,
well,
I mean, I couldn't figure out how to. I tried to fix it at first, and then I thought, I like it, but replicating is interesting and almost
that's right.
impossible if you're
Yeah,
not truly paying attention.
it would be, the process, understanding, trying to figure out how that happens, so you could redo that technique, which kind of gives you kind of a uniqueness that nobody else is doing. It's sort of like a discovery that you almost cannot reteach it. Like it's one of those things that just happen. Anyway, I love the lines and the nature, and I love the fact that a firefighter took this photo, because we had some devastating fires in the north in the last number of years, and this is almost like knowing that background is a bit of response to that. I mean, this is the off season. There's no real fires happening in the winter, but it's remorseful. It really feels time out. It has that feeling of give me a break. I don't know. There's feelings that come to art for different people, and it's a lovely piece. Then we get into some spring summer stuff here. We got these are lovely little, and I'll call them little vignettes of our prairie. I mean, we love flora, fauna, and all the things that that I can feel that smell in the air when I look at a piece that I want to be there. And in August you could smell the sage in the grass, and there's some really special moments. Do those smell senses affect what you're doing as well, and in building things a bit?
I think so. Yeah, I think now that you say that, it's funny how different people respond to images, because I've had people, and honestly, it floors me. So I do direct sales through art markets, that sort of thing. And I love that interpersonal connection with people who are buying the work. But the one comment that I get, not so much like, yeah, smell, but sometimes they'll say, wow, that's my grandpa's back 40, or exactly. And they know it's not, but it is to them, right? And I've had people say, I just want to walk there. I just want to walk there. And that, to me, that's the greatest compliment I could get.
That's the magic zone. It's sort of like picking that, the right kind of day to take photography, and those magic hours of light and shadow, to find an image that can be something for everybody, anytime, anywhere, and you trigger a remembrance, which is a 50% sale. Like that's really, if you can get them to put their name almost on it, I've been there, that's mine, I want it, I want to take it. You're 50% of the way there. The rest is pretty much let them talk about it, and the painting will walk away. I don't want to say walk away. That can happen too, but hopefully after. But it's and when you show outdoors and in a community that is surrounded by this kind of nature, people have to drive to where you're going for your show, so they experience what this is before they get to you. Then they see the painting, like you said, that they're very strong senses, because art really is a want, it's not a need. But when you can get closer to the need, that's a trigger. And I think it's really important that you don't paint to it. It sometimes just happens, you naturally do it. And I love, again, we talked about this creating a distance thing, and I love this. The road is subtle in the background, and you get that nice little zigzag that takes your eye through the painting, and it has you want to stay in the painting is what I guess I'm saying, more so than in and out, move on, right? Because what do they say? How long does a person stay in front of a painting? Say
8 seconds tops. 8 seconds.
There you go. So if you can you've already commanded them more than 8 seconds already. So there you go.
Yeah.
I love that. Yeah. This is more of a policy. Now, what this relationship of fences, how does that resonate with you? Like the importance of a
You know,
fence?
I think a lot of it from a technical standpoint, I need something to anchor the viewer. And for me, so a point of, whether it's your point of interest, so quite often what I'll do is I will look for, that rule of thirds. So I'm looking for, in the image where I can start your view. And for me, that's the focal point. So for this, it's the base of those two fence posts. So from a strictly technical point of view, the little tree on the side catches your attention. You get zapped over to the fence post, and that's going to draw you back. There's an S curve kind of visually. Yes, but when I'm painting it, do I know that? Yeah, I don't know. What fences do for me is they have a structure in a landscape. Some people paint. I used to do a lot of figures, so the fences for me became that touch point that's like a figure. You will always, if there's a figure in the landscape, your eye will go to in any painting, your eye will go to the figure first. So this works kind of in the same way too. Also, I mean, I love them. They're especially the older, more decrepit, falling down piece of fence that doesn't really fence anything in anymore, the better. And we're losing those a lot. You find them, they're like, what diamond willow is, Paula? So it's willow that grows, and it has everywhere where there was a knot, it's a diamond shape, right? And so they used to make fence posts out of that stuff. Just amazing, right? And of course, now, 100 years later, it's falling apart, and nobody really does anything with it, and
Yeah.
the rust on the barbed wire, and that kind of a very visible presence of a human in the landscape is interesting
Yeah.
against what then becomes a very overgrown, because if those fences are falling down, nobody's really maintaining that fence, so they're allowing maybe the land to go back to natural prairie, maybe so that kind of stuff is the narrative, but the visual presence of it really does help me technically work through a painting.
Yeah. Putting a human um, footprint or fingerprint on the landscapes as we were here. It's such a short time, really, relative to the time of nature. But a lot, like you said, these barbed wire is a funny thing, and fences they're a dangerous thing sometimes when you're
Oh, yeah.
you're working with natural structures and organic shapes and different things, and all of a sudden you put in posts and pillars and different things, and you kind of go, what's it really about? Do these two belong together? Like, now the storytelling changes a little bit. If this was just without fences and fences right now, it was just trees and landscape grasses and sky, that's one feeling. When you put
Mhm.
this aging older post, it's not a brand new post, so it's been there for a while. There's a lot of stories being told within this, right? The barbed wire is almost simile of trying to be a burr of some kind that was natural, but now the barb is a natural man-made item that is trying to represent a natural thing, but yet it's nasty stuff. Old wire is and sometimes it's a problem. There's some of it just laying loose in the grasses, and so they're trying to gather that stuff up and recycle it. But no, it's a nice response piece, and and it's it's subtle, it's nice, and the posts aren't straight. I love it. They have a little
They never
canter.
are. They never are.
Never straight. Kind of in and out. Okay, now we're going to get into some beautiful piece. I love this vista feeling. It's the loose nature of this piece. Is this an acrylic piece again? This one?
No, actually, this is oil. I can't remember if I started with acrylic and then just kind of got mad at it and went into it with it maybe
I'm
have started
I'm
with,
glad you
but you
said
know
that.
what I mean? Like the problem with oil paint is that unless you can't just gesso over it, right? Your only option is start again or go in with some white or something. And I think that's what I did. I think I was quite happy with the ground, the canola and when I went into it. And I did paint over. I'm gonna assume it was acrylic. So I went over and I did some oil and I didn't like that. So I went back in with the white. And as I'm going in with the white and I'm kind of angry, you can see the white is blending with some gray in there. And there's a little bit of pink from the sky that was there before showing through. And this actually, the marks could have been charcoal. There probably were some, but I also had, I don't think it was an oil stick. I think maybe it was an oil marker because again, I like to hold on to a tool like Conte crayon or charcoal or an acrylic marker rather than paint sometimes with the line because truly I'm a drafts person. I love drawing. So I like to draw into my work. But this one just kind of came together and I was like,
Yeah,
oh, one of those that blindsides you, and you stand back and you go, okay, I think it's done.
well, you see these things when you drive, and you say, oh, I want to be in the studio right now. I need to paint what I just saw, and you can see with this type of day, the light pops in and out, where you can see the shadows moving and the light move across the landscape, and it'll backlight something, and the canola just pops, and you say, I can't even paint that chromium yellow. It's so, but you got to figure out how can you capture that much light in your pigment, and it's usually the removal of light to make the light look brighter and the things. And so I love the feeling of the depth where you have shadows in the foreground and that skip of light, and it's nice in your good decision making. I mean, you work with it until you either break it or you fix it, right? And I think that's I think all artists kind of go through that and say some you just turn it against the wall, and maybe in a week you turn it back and you give it another look and another chance. I guess we'll look at it that way.
Mm-hmm.
We'll go on here. So this is an encaustic piece, correct? Yeah.
So I started in encaustic again 2020. I took a one-on-one mentorship with Bobby Claxon Walker. And I was in love with encaustic the minute I saw it, somebody else's work, and then I found artists that did amazing things, like Jasper Johns did amazing things with encaustic way back in the day. And anyway, so I thought, well, I need to learn how to do this. So this was one of the earlier pieces I did, and it has, you can see there's collaged paper in it. There's a sewing pattern underneath if you look carefully enough, and then that line again. So that's actually, encaustic is interesting. You can put whatever you want under it except for acrylic paint as long as it's dry. So there's watercolor media under there, or there's water media, and then there's collage, and again, same thing. But on the surface, so I do like to go back and change things. So on the surface, what can you do? What's going to stick to this waxy surface? Of course, it's beeswax, right? And it gets hard from the resin that's mixed into the beeswax. And so you can't, first of all, you can't put any water media on top of it. You could put oil paint on top of it. But I thought, okay. And I had seen where some artists are using India ink and just like a dip pen, or just, the ink comes sometimes in it's got a little drop. So on this one, I literally used the dropper of the ink and just went in, because before I did that, it was pretty dull. It was very bland, and I thought it needs something. It needs some splashes of ink. So that's what happened. And I did a whole series of these. And now when I try to get back to that freshness, if you call it that like we talked about this, Paul, that naive, when you first start working with something, you do stuff, and unless you really try and replicate it right away, you almost lose it. And for sure, you don't have that first discovery look. It's impossible to replicate that. And for me, that's what it had so much promise, and I've done so much more and different things with encaustic, but this is the bare bones of what I love about encaustic. So the surface and the shine, the transparency through, and then being able to play with the surface more and more.
So are you using an oil? Are you using an oil stick for?
Not moving? This one.
Not this.
Not on this one. I do now. A little bit. What I get frustrated with oil stick or oil media on encaustic is just the wait time, because it's a very process heavy thing to do as encaustic. So the oil stick, and I know lots of artists work with it, and heat heat the oil stick into it or make their own paints or whatever. Because I'm limited in my studio space, I don't like to play with the oil much under heat, because of the volatile mineral spirits that then get released. If I had a different studio, I probably would do more. But yeah, I've learned different things that will make line, and I'm just experimenting right now with, instead of doing my collage entirely underneath the encaustic, now collaging on top, and I can make the line on that,
Yeah.
dip whatever paper it is in the encaustic medium, make it transparent, and then so I'm applying line in a completely different way. We'll see. We'll see how those work out. That's my experiment right now.
So the response with using text and type from torn paper and different things. I mean, you can see it along the horizon line. It gives you a different feeling and texture. It's got this nice gray value, and it's a flatter thing more so than, and it's sealed up with the wax. I mean, you can see it's been absorbed and immersed in it, and you trap color against it and move it in and out. So they become almost collage-like in what you're building. Where did that come from? The need to add text to your work.
You know, I love I mean, I am an avid reader, so I mean, I love the word. My first choice of study would have been linguistics way back in the day, but that didn't work out. So I think that there's a draw to the written word. Beyond that, quite often it's a choice. I have a big tub full of different papers I've pulled out. So sometimes it's Japanese papers that I've actually purchased little pieces of, or old books, stuff that I've written on, or, yeah, the colors of the paper. So this was, I can't even remember if when I went over with watercolor, if it tinted that paper a dark blue or was it a dark blue? I can't even remember. So quite often it's the value of the paper and then the line that and texture that's created by the text itself. Occasionally now I'll go back and I'll try and, as I'm laying out the collage, if I have to choose between one piece and another that has something interesting in terms of a word or a series of word, or I have an old Canadian encyclopedia. And so it's got little images and words. So, occasionally I'll get, I'm doing a landscape and it's got rabbit.
Yeah.
Picture of a rabbit. So stuff like that, right? But I'm not as aware of the words during the process. And then it's almost like these Easter eggs pop up for me and for the viewers, right? So yeah, it's almost like, again, it's like a oops, almost. Oh, I'm sure there's something right going on there. I'm hoping there's something going on there.
Yeah, this is a very earthy looking piece. You really, there's a lot of, it's really about texture. The feeling, and you're immersed in. Yeah, yes, you have structure, and there's this bush trees type shape that's there in the landscape, but it's just sort of, it's very earthy. I mean, these umbers and ochres that are there, and and even that washy sky, it almost feels like this watercolor nature. I think it's really nice that artists try different mediums, like try different things, because say you're a traditional acrylic painter and you say I don't vary from that. And he says, well, do you do watercolors? So it's like, are there two different, or do you do charcoal pencil drawings, or do you do things like how, rather than just the one form? I think it limits you. Like if once you learn how a watercolor can blend and wash, and say, maybe I could try that with washes of oil or washes of acrylic, that might enhance my work in a different way, rather than getting so maybe opaque looking, or something that a little bit more transparent, loose edge lines, soft edges instead of crisp edges, or opposite to that. So it's nice to have experiment days. I know they're precious, to try and find, this is my experiment day. They're hard to block out in your time, and sometimes it's, I don't know if everybody used to scribble on the side of their history book when they were in school. That was my timeout time. Like I just sit there, not that I was going anywhere very fast, but obviously something wasn't holding my attention. But I think it's important. Do you do a sketchbook? Do you have a sketchbook that you work in?
I don't have a sketchbook practice. I will work things out before I'm doing a composition. And unfortunately, or maybe fortunately, you see the history of what should maybe have been a series of sketches in my work. So I'll start, I start with a composition in mind, an image, whatever. And then quite often what happens is I end up changing it and on the go. So that is one goal of mine is to, take a day a week, or like you said, maybe every morning, and just spend some time playing, capturing things, whether it's in a sketchbook or not, just to get your head in the right place, and then find those happy accidents that, then you can incorporate, right? So, yeah.
So you work from photographs. You say that you do that. Do you work from them digitally? Like, do you work off your phone, or do you print them off at all? Or
I never print them off. I used to, and then I would hold them, right? But now I have the monitor I've got in front of me right now is huge. So I get light through the image. For encaustics, I don't really. My worst pieces start from a photograph. It's a long story. But my best pieces start from like that memory of a landscape and just what do I want, and just playing with that collage and laying things out and going, oh yeah, no, this is So I do some of both, but when I'm painting, I like to have something in front of me. So I have it. They're usually my photographs. Sometimes now Cindy Hoppy and I are working collaboratively on several shows together. So we're working from very, very similar or the same photographs. So sometimes she'll send me them, but I'll put them up on my monitor and I will edit them so that I get the composition where I like it. I'm fairly proficient at digital media, so I can zap things. But one like this, no, I knew I wanted to have some canola, and I had some beautiful green and yellow Japanese paper, and I tore it up. And so that's my process is for these, is collage. And then what you see in the sky is water media, usually watercolor, sometimes colored graphite that is water soluble. And then it's going in with the encaustic over top. And there's one of the happy little things. So I was doing this, and in the Japanese paper, there was not just flowers, but there was a pattern of butterflies, or, that little white butterfly in the corner. And I saw it and I thought, it's kind of goofy. I don't know. And I left it for a while, and I sent a picture of it to my friend. I said, what do you think? She goes, did you put that butterfly in there? I said, no, it just happened. So she goes, okay, I want that piece. I wasn't a sales pitch. It was just, she just loved it. She just thought, and she has a PhD in food science, and she's an agriculture scientist. And I'm looking at this canola field and thinking, don't ever show this to one of the farmers. It would be a miserable canola field, but nevertheless.
I love the looseness and yet structure in this piece, and the variance of blossom sizes, and the color variance is yellow on ochre, yellow, like they give a nice little pop, yet there's the defining umbers that define a shape in it. The butterfly, when people see it on the far right there, the little tiny butterfly sitting on the top there, I didn't see it to start with. And when you point it up, now all I see is the butterfly. It's just
right.
Oh, yeah, right. But it's those lovely happenstances, right? Again, everybody has them. It's like, do not cover stuff up too quickly. Walk away, go have a coffee, come back tomorrow, look, have a friend look at it, whatever, a certain percentage of the time they'll say paint over it. But it's, the thing is, when things happen, it's sort of like this big blossom sky that's happening there. It's like the freedom of it, that you just lay it in and it just washes down, and these colors meld together and stop. Like, knowing when to stop is really hard. I know a lot of artists say, oh, maybe I should have finished it to the top of the page and all those little things, but leaving that light form in there keeps that nice loose feeling. How big is this piece initially? This one?
It's tiny. This is probably, I can't remember if it's 6 by 6 or 8 by 8. I did a whole series of these specifically for markets, because people like small work, and I get to talk to them about the freedom of encaustic and this and that, and it sort of ticks over in their brain. But it's small. I would love to say I could do this large, but there's something about working small that forces you to do it, right?
I'd love to see this piece floor to ceiling, 8 foot by 8 foot in a building, The presence of it would be amazing. Like when size makes a difference. Like, you think you could, a lot of things you can't blow up. They just don't. They just don't. You get a little tiny sketch. You love it. It's just a little sketch. I want to replicate it. You know what? It's a different painting. But it's a great challenge, though. You say, because you're not as loose. Your brush has to be bigger. Everything has to be, how big those blossoms would be. Have you got enough in you to say, I want to make it a blossom that's this big on a canvas? But when you can see the thing from 30 feet away, when you walk into a room, it commands some presence, if that's what you want. So it's nice when you have a show that you have a couple of dominant paintings that command what the show is about. The other ones are subordinate that speak to that piece of work to create a body of work. And this piece would have that kind of presence. And it's, like you said, it's spontaneous. It happened shortly. Little things, just a morning and it's done. And you go, wow. And if somebody wants it like right away, that's in a response when somebody says they want it. You're hitting a bell. Like there's something there. And going, I'd love to see even, this as an oil or an acrylic painting. Because you can get a big brush and you can wash in inks and different things to give you that sky look in a larger 3 foot by 3 foot painting that would command a presence, and not to replicate it, but mostly to say, try to give that loose feeling to it. It would be a nice challenge. And
it would, yeah.
Yeah,
I totally agree. Totally. And that, for me, that's the challenge is to, whether I would kind of replicate this or whatever, is to get that looseness with intention. Does that make sense? So it looks like it's almost unintentional, but it's a matter of stopping and I do larger pieces.
it's hard to do. Yeah.
It is so hard to do. Yeah, that's my next goal. I think, like we talked about, you set goals, how do you manage your art career?
Well,
Yeah.
It happens with art galleries. When you get good at one thing, they say, give me 4 more. Yeah. And you go, oh, now you have a danger zone. You have to say, do I paint for the gallery and their audience, or do I paint for me? And say, well, maybe my next show, maybe next time out, you'll see. So maybe paint more of them when you're doing it and just say, yeah, I've just painted a couple more, but then you have to move on. Yeah, I think. Yeah. Now this is ultimate freedom. Like feels very Japanese to me. It has this very Japanese feeling. It's just the loose. It's just like you did it with one of those, the big loose hockey brush of some kind, and a painting brush and the colors. So what is it painted on? Is it on copper or?
No, it would be cool. Actually, I know several encaustic artists so this is encaustic. It is on can't remember if I was using clayboard yet. So it's I think it's clayboard. So if you don't know what clayboard is, you're probably along with the vast majority of humanity. So what it is it's a hard surface, and then the company who creates these uses a combination of, it's kind of a PVA or PVC glue, and kaolin clay, and it's layered and layered and sanded, and it gives so encaustic needs a porous surface, or else the wax will not adhere, just like paper. It has the feel of silk, but it's porous. And so it's fantastic to do encaustic on. So the same process as all of them. So again, my structure was, that's collage across the back, the horizon line, that line coming down. So I've set up just a cross composition. And then watercolor, I actually believe that is, because it's so granular, I think actually it's graphite. And then let all of that dry, put a coat of clear encaustic on top. And then the reason it looks Japanese, and I agree, it does look like a character, right? Like a Japanese letter, and it was done again because this is small, again, this is probably a 5x5 piece. This is the equivalent of my sketches, right? Because the dropper then lets out so much of the India ink, and I just let that dry. And then there's some copper. It's not real copper. It's metal leaf in the composition. So you can see at the bottom and top, and around the edge, it's actually pan pastel with mica in it, so that it has a copper shine. Right? So I finished the edge like that. So, but again, it's like this big. This one, if I could paint this huge and this loosely, and that would be
bigger brush. Take a bigger brush, cup of coffee, hold your breath.
I was going to say a big glass of wine.
Yeah. Well, I've seen some of the Japanese and Chinese artists painting on the floor with these big mops, and they'll sit for most of the time meditating, thinking about what they're going to do. It's like choreography. They walk through it, and one guy had a piece of paper the size of the floor in this warehouse, and he was well known for his writing with these huge mop type brushes. But he sat on the floor meditating for quite a while, and then he just gets up and goes. So he knew his choreography, what he was going to do, and it was just. But it feels like this very, it's planned, but it looks like it's spontaneous. There's a lot more. They're florals. Some of their florals that more structured. These pieces are more structured, more linear, drawn and filled, but they have the nice vibrance and feeling of this floral garden. It's kind of.
Yeah, I used to do a lot more florals than I do now, and what I particularly liked was again going to people's gardens that it was just crazy, right? For me, a garden isn't inspiring if it's in rows, like neat little rows. I want to see where the weeds are growing, the dill is coming between the poppies, and then there's, whatever. So yeah, that's how this went. It's funny. This one started, I was sitting at something and I had my sketchbook and I had my iPad and I had the photograph, and I was, and then I went in with some watercolor and it was there. I worked exactly from the watercolor sketch and blew it up. I think this is a 3624 canvas.
One of your bigger pieces, yeah.
I work up to 40 by 40. It's just I work in a huge variety of sizes. Right?
Yeah, I was just going from the 6x6 piece up to this one.
So encaustics, because of the nature of the process, for me, for the longest time, because I didn't have a great way to. If you can imagine, you have to work on them flat, and then you have to fuse each layer. So to reach over a large piece, even just to fuse it. So now I have an easel that I can turn, so I can work. So I'm starting to work a little bit bigger. So that my encaustics, I never used to work small at all, and when I started doing encaustic, I worked small. So this one is quite large. I can't remember, 48 by 40, something like that.
More vertical, a little bit vertical. It's a lovely response to a very tangled garden. Like it's really full, and yet these yellow flowers are just they're just popping out. I love that they're not all sitting out perfect. They're curled and things are going on, and the sunflower it's a dangerous flower to paint. It's so dramatic and it's yellow with brown centers, and they've been so well done by so many other artists. And Mr. Van Gogh by himself is well known for the iconic flower in itself. But I think they're, I love it. I mean, you looked at McDonald's Tangled Garden, a group of 7, and his response to these flowers as well. And you kind of go, where was your inspiration other than just walking through the garden and you love that? Is it a response to other things other than just the garden?
It's interesting. That's a good question. This same garden had poppies in it. It might have been the same day I was walking through and taking pictures. And I love poppies, so I probably just intended to paint poppies and then took these pictures of sunflowers. And I agree. Usually sunflowers, to me, they're kind of ugly. they're hard to
You
touch.
gotta turn them. You got to turn them. You can't have them all facing you like this.
No, exactly. And this just happened. And I think I actually worked from 3 or 4 different photographs from that
Oh, nice.
shoot to get enough volume of them
Yeah.
in there. And this one happened. I mean, I had a sunflower painting right around the time that the war in Ukraine started. And every time I paint a sunflower now, I do think about that because it is their symbol. But it's not really a response to that. It's the abundance and overload of images and lines that just appeals to me. I would rather work with more than less and then pare it down. This I didn't pare down. I mean, in fact, if anything, I added more than was there,
Yeah,
right? So yeah.
there is a complexity to it that is beautiful. I mean, there's texture and line, and you start. How do I define one green from another green? How do you? The complexities are there, and I love how the aging of the flowers in the piece as well. So it's yeah. I got to move on. There's a couple more back to our winter weather here, and encaustic again, I would assume, and
No, this one is. So it's interesting when we talked about text. So I don't think you've noticed it. First of all, this is acrylic and mixed media. So this is acrylic. There's some metal leaf along the horizon, which the name is copper along the horizon, but you don't really see it unless you're in exactly the right light. And then ink. So in the corner, when I started working on it, I saw it looked like, just from my brushstrokes, a word. So I went in and actually painted in with a stencil the word sky in the upper right corner of the image. And I've done that with a few pieces now, and quite often they get buried. But it was just one of those things. But yeah, this is acrylic, and I liked using my palette knife and scratching back over the slightly bumpy surface gave me that almost that encaustic feel, right? So yeah, this one is can't
it's
remember.
nice.
It's not huge. It's about 20. It's about 24 by 30. I'm going to say.
Yeah,
Is it
yeah.
that? Yeah.
Dealing with silhouettes is always an issue, but you got to really have strong line and thin, thick. Different things are happening, some different gray values, but it's still it's very much what winter's like. All the leaves fall off, and you get all this spiky looking bush that turns into a beautiful tree, in the summertime, or a bush, right? So yeah, we're back into warm weather again.
Yeah. So this, I said when I work from photographs, it's my worst encaustic. I don't mind this one. So this is part of a show. Actually, it's hanging in Humboldt right now. So taking the same image or very similar images, Cindy Hoppy's doing this image. She did it in fiber and thread painting, and I did it in encaustic. My process was exactly the same as it always is. So there's a ton of collage under there,
Yeah.
and then a water media sky. But as I started to work on it, I really did not love what was happening with the collage. So I ended up covering it almost entirely. I think in person, actually, it's a much more successful piece than the photograph, because that fireweed in the front pops better and everything works better. But this is when I feel like I have to adhere to the constraints of an image that I'm working from, that I don't ever feel 100% happy with the outcome of it. So that's a situation. But I included it because it's a large encaustic, it's really recent, and it's got the components of encaustic that I like. So it's got some line going on, and some of that, the texture of it is lovely in person. But
Yeah.
like I said, sometimes you start with the best intentions, or maybe your intentions should be different, right?
Well,
But yeah, I don't think it's my most successful piece.
yeah. Well, you let your journey be what it is, right? A little bit, you have each piece is you want them to be similar in, so they know that it's your style of work a little bit, but that comes naturally anyway if you're responding to, different medias or something you're working in. But I think it's a nice representation of a space in your own vision. and it's from working it, and building those layers. So yeah, there's a walk in the woods. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So this
Yeah.
is really also kind of a prairie piece to me, because the prairie doesn't necessarily always have to mean literally the prairie. This is a little grove of trees that's on the edge of a field, right? In the fall.
Yeah.
Yeah, it just yeah. And this one is acrylic. There's some line in there from different things. A lot of again, that acrylic marker, which works. You have to be careful, but it works quite well for certain kinds of line. Yeah. Fully acrylic piece, painted entirely over another painting too.
Don't we do that occasionally? Yeah, don't we do that occasionally? But,
Oh yeah.
and here's that painting that we said we would enlarge for people.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's a beautiful piece. I think it's one of those things that, I cropped it to be, horizontal, because I'm always about, at a certain point, you have to decide, what is the painting about? Is it about the sky, or is it about the foreground? Is it about, if you can nail it down to one or two words, what am I trying to say in this painting? This one's really, and it changed when I made it a horizontal, because it became about the ground. Where this one becomes about, the sky is dominant. It becomes really a sky piece. By the way, there's a foreground, and I've seen these paintings where there's this little sliver of ground, but this huge sky. So scale means so much, and it changes the context of what does that painting mean, and the artist is usually spontaneous. If you're dealing with a square panel, you're kind of dealing, if you're dealing with a horizontal panel, is it vertical or horizontal? You have to decide pretty quickly, if it's a horizon line, where is that going to sit on this page? You write it down the middle in half, or do you decide where the thirds are, or eighths, or again, what is the painting about? So we talked about it earlier a bit, but is this really about the sky, this piece? This painting?
I wanted it to be about the sky, and then, you do the sky and you're working, and again, I had the horizon line where I wanted it, and I thought, well, I'm not going to do a lot with the ground. And then I did, and all of a sudden, that the trees that they're not quite central, but not the ones off on the right, became quite important. And I thought, and I had a lot more going on in the ground, and so I still simplified it, and I emphasized there's sort of a darkness to the ground leading up to the patch of trees, which I'm hoping is a departure point then to work you back up into the sky, because it was supposed to be all about the sky, right?
Yeah.
And then as I was working and started working on the ground, it became apparent that the ground was going to be doing something in there. So I had to stop. And in fact, I think, did I get rid of some lines that were just kind of taking the eye too much, just in the ground, and I did want it to come up. The other thing I did was, for a while, the sky had, and it's just the way the sky was that day, it was pure white between those walls of cloud. I don't know if they were weather fronts or whatever, just a pure white, almost like a pillar going up. And I went back in and I added some subtle grays and blues in the middle of the painting, just to stop your eye, because when I had it like that, it was all about that. It was just that. That's all you. So at least it kind of bounces your eye there. Then look around and find some other stuff. And so yeah, a person has to be really cautious when you stand back, especially after a couple of days, and go, oh, okay, now I can't just look at the pieces like, that's the artist thing. I like this little corner of what we do, right? We do that, and we're like, oh, I love that, and we become very precious about it, and you don't want to change that little bit. That's a trap that I've learned that you have to get over, right? So to me, the piece has to work cohesively. I think I've made it work cohesively, but I agree. To me, a piece has to be about the sky or the ground, especially if the sky is so strong. And I've done paintings where it is just a little sliver of ground, and I love that. I love that in other artists' work, so yeah.
No, it's a nice loose sky, yet it has structure, and that's the variance. Like, you got to figure out. Clouds are soft; they have that soft edge about them, and all those things, right? And
Mine aren't. Look.
well, you've given it some edges and some, it forces you as an artist to make decisions. Like, where do I draw my line? How big are these clouds? And the clouds are a little different in the background than they are in the foreground, and they seem to be exploding, and they have an energy to them. And I like that. I think, boy, we're out of time right now. But we're going to bring David back in here. I really appreciate you taking some time with us today and talking about your work. I mean, it's been exciting. Time goes by fast, and there's David. There we go.
Yeah, I mean, all the beautiful things, and my mind just is stuck with a post with the barbed wire.
Yeah, there he is, tied to the wire.
Tied to the wire. It's awful, isn't it? It's awful because you see so many things, and then beautiful colors and everything, and then I just think, I'm standing in front of that post with a barbed wire, and I'm thinking to myself, how am I going to climb over it?
Well, that actually is a gate. Post.
even worse, because I was going to climb over the gate.
Yeah, you don't climb over. You actually there's a hoop of wire, and you lift the wire up and over the post, lean the post down, go over, lift the post back up, put the wire back over the loop back over the post. That's how they're done.
Yeah.
Anyway,
too complicated.
I used to have to ride shotgun on my uncle's truck, and I was the gate guy. I hated it. I had to open and close the gate. Well, he got to drive the truck through into the field, and I had to close the gate. So I know about gates. Anyway,
but funny, isn't it? You just kind of
it's funny. Your memory.
You have a complete portfolio of art, and your mind just gets stuck on one thing, which is.
And a website.
I just wanted to ask, actually, if anybody wanted to purchase one of your pieces of art, can you give the viewers a little bit of a ballpark pricing and what they'd be paying for it?
Yeah. So my prices range from the really tiny ones are about 115, like the 4x4s, up to let's say $1,500 for the larger ones.
Yeah. And I have to say then Canadian dollars, so that everybody knows.
Oh yeah, even more reasonable. Well.
You can pay me in pounds. You can pay me in pounds, though. I'd be okay with it.
We accept American dollars and pounds. Yes.
Or American dollars. I'm good.
We're good. Well, thank you very much. We enjoyed it having you be with us here on Canadian Art Today. Thanks, David, again for doing our production work.
Thank you, Paul, for bringing another wonderful guest on. And
we're just going to push it out a little bit, and we'll see if we can get some things happening for you. And we appreciate it that you spent some time with us this morning. Now you have to go back to your day job. I'm sorry. But
I do. But thank you very much. It was a lot of fun. I thank you for the opportunity.
Yeah. Well, thank you for coming out onto the show. And what we always say to everybody as well is that if you enjoyed this, there's a lot more other shows with lots of other artists. Not quite as good as Diana, but lots of other artists as well to see. So we encourage everybody to like and subscribe to Canadian Art Today. So thank you to Diana. Thank you once again to Paul for another wonderful guest. And until next week on Canadian Art Today.
Have a great week, guys. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.